on this. So welcome everybody. What a wonderful group we are having here. And first of all, welcome to everybody on Facebook. We are live in the Rebirth International Community Group. Today is Leonard Orr's birthday. Happy birthday, Leonard. And this is our fourth meeting that we are having. We had the first one in English this morning at 10 a.m. Central European time with friends from India and Australia and Holland, and you can watch that on YouTube. Then we had a German meeting where Sophie Lanzoni and I welcomed people on Facebook discussing these ideas in German. And then we had a beautiful Spanish meeting that Irene was leading and Armando. And now we are in our second English meeting, and I will hand it over, I think, to Peace. And Sarah is here, and Sarah might do the 20 connected breaths with us. But before that, we might read some affirmations, as we usually do with Leonard, and we can do the next ones that we didn't do this morning. So we start with number 12.
And do you have that? Is there a way to show that, Heike, on the screen? Can you screen share the affirmations?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us, everyone in the room and everyone watching on Zoom and everyone who will be watching at some point in the future when the recordings are available. And we are going to start the way we usually start meetings with the affirmations. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to just read straight through them. Each person will read one. We'll take turns, go around the gallery. And we'll start with number 12. So I will start you off. Heike, can you see an order? Okay, and then I'll just call the next name. So the first affirmation is, I do not have to suffer to get happiness.
Jay!
Yay.
Hey.
Kiara? Will you read?
She has muted herself.
Heike, please take over. I'm letting Georgiana in.
There's nobody in the waiting room.
Okay. I, Kira, do not have to suffer to get happiness. Jay.
Jay!
Yay.
Beautiful. Glenn, next, please.
Thank you.
Number 13.
Number 13. My goodness keeps hanging around. Just because something is good, it does not mean that it has to go away. Jay.
Jay.
Jay!
And Sermon Gillies.
Yes, and I just want to say it's Sermons Gillis, just for you to know. All good things never end. They just keep getting richer.
Jay!
Hey.
Hey.
Yay.
I, Heike, enjoy accepting the good so that I can get more. Jay!
Hey.
Jay.
Jan.
The more satisfied I become with the present situation, the more satisfaction I obtain.
Jay.
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 Bill Meyer.
I now feel sweet, joyous peace. I enjoy doing spiritual purification practices. Jay.
Hey!
Jay.
Simon.
I have the right to indulge in laziness so long as it is.
Jay.
Yay.
Hey!
Hydron.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
She probably has to unmute herself.
Okay. Irene.
19 or 18? 19, isn't it?
Yes, 19.
I am an ever-flowing spring of aliveness. God is the ground of my being.
Jay,
Yay.
Yay.
Alex.
Well, we start with number one.
Okay. For me, Alex, my mind is centered in infinite intelligence that knows my good. I am one with the creative power that is materializing all of my desires. Jay.
Jay.
Yay.
Next, Frank, and then Chris.
Right, number 2. All the cells of my body are daily bathed in the perfection of my divine being.
Jay.
Yay.
Yay.
Who has not read?
Chris, did Chris go? Did Chris read? Chris? Oh, maybe he's not there. Sarah Dawn might not be at the Giusti, Giusti, the name says.
Yes, Giusti.
Giusti.
Hermione is really what I'm known as.
Hermione!
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Hi.
Hermione.
Hi.
Jay.
What number are we on?
3.
3. I, Hermione, now have enough time, energy, wisdom, and money to accomplish all of my desires. Jay.
Jay.
Yay.
Is George. Let's see which George this is. George connecting to audio. Well,
And he
Georgie,
can't hear us. Okay, well, that's good with affirmations, I think. Is Sarah and Adama, are they available to, I will stop the screen sharing. Are
okay.
you available to do some breathing with us?
Sarah is listening in the background while finishing up details. They'll jump in when they can. So I will ask Glenn Smiley to begin the 20 connected breaths.
Very good. But before we do that, could I start us off with a song?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to sing the first, and then I'm going to ask everybody to join in.
Oh, that might sound on Zoom terrible, but we can unmute our.
I love you, whether you know it or not. I love you, whether I show it or not. There are so many things I haven't said inside my heart. So now is a good time to start. You love me, whether you know it or not. Come on, sing along. You love me, whether you show it or not. There are so many things we haven't said inside our heart. So now is a good time to start. God loves us, whether we know it or not. God loves us, whether we show it or not. There are so many things we haven't said inside our heart. So now is a good time to start. I love me, whether I know it or not. Give yourself a big hug. I love me, whether I show it or not. There are so many things I haven't said inside my heart. So now is a good time to start. Yay!
Yay.
Okay, that gets us breathing. Now,
Okay.
we're going to start with a 20 connected breath the way I did it, and Leonard and I did it together. I was with Leonard back in the 70s, and he and I were friends. We were on the same pathway. He was doing the rebirthing. I was doing civil mind control, and then started my own courses. And the way we did the 20 connected breaths is I'm going to demonstrate here now. I know there's a lot of new bells and whistles and ways to do it, but this is how it was in the beginning. It starts with a long breath and an easy exhale, slow exhale. And then it goes 4 short, rapid breaths, and then a long breath. All of these connected. Goes, I'm going to do it through my mouth so you can hear the breathing more than through my nose, but you can do it either through your nose or through your mouth. And it goes,
Somehow we don't hear you, but
Now, if you're like me, that cleared the cobwebs.
okay, we can hear you now.
Would you do it again? We didn't get that.
I could let Georgiana in, please.
Nobody in the waiting room. Okay, Glenn, do one more time.
Okay, one more time. Want me to explain it or just do it? I'll explain it. We take a long breath and a slow exhale, and then we take 4 short breaths connected, all connected, and then another long breath, slow exhale, and then 4 short that are more rapid. And we do 4 cycles of that. It goes like this.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a blessing.
Okay, we continue with some more breathing. So that means we are going to do the 20 connected breaths again through the nose, but we put our tongue between our lip and teeth, and we do 4 short, 1 long, 1 4 times. So let's do that together. And we can do the same 9 short, 1 long, 1 2 times. So still breathing connected, and I already feel tingles and vibrations through the last 2 exercises. So 9 short, 1 long, 2 times connected breaths. Let's do that. Okay, and let's do the alternate nostril breath, breathing in through the left, out through the right, in through the right and out through the left. And we do that 3 times. Breathing in through the left and doing 3 rounds. And we do the same after we finish this, 3 rounds of inhale through the left and then holding both nostrils closed. And while we are holding, we are repeating a mantra. So the energy spreads in the body, and the mantra could be Om Namah Shivaya, or it could be a beautiful affirmation that you have for yourself. Breathing out through the right, in through the right, holding both nostrils, repeating our mantra, and out through the left. That's 1 round, and we do 3 of those rounds. And if you like, I'll lead us now into a little meditation while we're doing the connected breathing silently. We're breathing 4 short, 1 long one, but we don't stop with 20. And we're breathing so gentle and so softly that there is no sound. Pure energy breathing, that's what we usually do at the end of a rebirthing session. So we enter that space between our thoughts. So just start breathing so gently and so softly that there is no sound on inhale and exhale. Okay, let's do that. And the breath is the bridge between spirit and matter. Our connected breathing leads us into our sacred internal space. The space of pure being. Fully connected and aware of the intelligence, the infinite intelligence all around us. And we invite to our meeting into that sacred space here with each other, all divine beings that are looking for growing and transforming into higher realities. We especially invite Leonard D. Orr, into the sacred space that we're in, celebrating his birthday today, celebrating his life. We invite Babaji and all the ascended masters and the immortal yogi masters to be here with us, connected in that oneness that we are. And may this meeting be guided and inspired by the higher truth in service and for inspiration for all of humanity. And you can take 3 deep, noisy breaths. And I hand it over to Peace.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Heike. So yes, today is Leonard's birthday. And I want to just, since Glenn got us started on singing, instead of happy birthday, I would like to sing a little song for Leonard. Om Leonard, celebrate Leonard, sing it with an open and joyful heart.
Oh, Leonard, celebrating Leonard,
Sing it with an
open
open heart.
Hey, thank you all. Happy birthday, Leonard, everyone.
Yes, that used to be on our birthday cakes.
Yes.
Everyone.
Everyone. He brings us here together. We all have some connection, either a personal connection, friendship, or through his books, trainings, or the spirit of the breath. We come here today on Leonard's birthday. This is our 3rd annual Physical Immortality Day. And as some of you may know, Leonard's interest, I guess when he was in high school, he became a born-again Christian. He was very excited about the idea of physical immortality. And then someone in his group died, and that launched him on a journey that brought him to India and to other scriptures and to look for immortal yogi masters, and we all joined him on that that journey at some point, and here we are today, continuing this journey, this exploration. And that's what it was for Leonard. It was an experiment and an exploration, and he was sharing this worldwide. And part of his mission was to make physical immortality part of the everyday vocabulary, part of, you know, in upfront in human consciousness, so that we can explore unlimited human potential and what is possible. And that's what we're here today to talk about, what is possible, and the expanded human capacities that we are working with. Many of us are working with this. We know that there are subtle bodies and subtle energies and more than 5 senses, and they've been taboo and for centuries, or if not longer. And so today we have the freedom to explore them and talk about them openly. And here we are, exploring the far reaches of human potential from where we are now. So welcome.
Thank
And
you.
so I would like to just talk a little bit about my first introduction to the idea of physical immortality. And it was really an initiation of sorts. I was on the phone with, I was planning a trip to visit Leonard for my first time. We'd had several phone conversations, but I was getting ready to come down to do a training with him on New Year's Eve. It was a New Year's Eve. I was going to be arriving on New Year's Eve. And I called him as I was getting ready, and I said, you know, Leonard, I just want you to know, I don't want to come if this is going to make you uncomfortable, because I'm really not so sure how I feel about this idea of physical immortality. You know, I hadn't really given it much thought. It was curious and intriguing, but it wasn't something I'd ever contemplated. And he said, you know, well, that's okay. Just keep an open mind and be willing to think about it, to contemplate it. And it's just an idea that gives us our best opportunity, you know, to unleash, you know, this life energy that we have trapped in our nervous systems, in our bodies around death. And it goes on from there. So I said, yes, okay, of course, I'd be willing to contemplate this. And I hung up the phone and contemplated it right away. And out of the depths of my subconscious came this idea, I can't afford to live that long. You know, it's like, wow, that was a mind-blowing realization that deep inside my subconscious mind, I had swapped the inherent value of life energy for the symbol, the monetary symbol of that actual life energy. And, you know, this, of course, happened through my exposure to my environment and the culture. And so there's a lot of people out there who I'm sure are living their lives as if money is what's needed to live. Now, I'm not saying in our society we don't need money to engage in certain activities, but we do have a life force, and the earth is constantly pushing up resources to us. So, you know, if we are believing that money is what's necessary over life, if we're replacing this symbol of money, you know, and not looking at how to preserve life, how to enliven ourselves, then we can get ourselves into big trouble. And I think we're seeing some signs that we're heading into trouble, and that this could be the real crux of it right there. So I think it's important, you know, to bring that up. So, so also physical immortality, it's an idea that really triggers people. It's almost, there's a taboo to it. It's amazing how, you know, some people will like love the idea and get all excited, and others will want to beat you up for suggesting it. So, you know,
Kill you for it.
for it.
Prove that you're not immortal.
Yeah, let me prove it to you here. So yeah, so clearly there's something there. There is a lot of life energy locked up in ideas around physical immortality. So let's free that up for life. Yeah. And that's what this exploration is partially about, right? And so perhaps because of this initiating experience right off the bat, before I even went down to meet Leonard, I saw the connection between money, prosperity consciousness, and physical immortality. And the other topics that Leonard brings in, ratio of representation, neighborhood representation, government without taxes, you know, all of these other ideas that people think are unrelated, incorruptible saints, you know, that are documented. It's such a vast exploration, and it all filters in to, you know, freeing up our life energy and unlocking it from our unconscious death urge. So it is all related, but it is kind of interesting how many people are, you know, I came here to learn about how to increase my income, and you're talking about neighborhood representation, you know, what? So there's a lot of confusion sometimes with people when they first meet Leonard, not all, you know, but some. So I think that's important to acknowledge. And here's a quote from Leonard: "Confusion is a high state right before the expansion of consciousness." So Leonard looked at confusion as the state of that, a state of confusion happens right before we are integrating new information and can have an expansion of our consciousness. So I think that's kind of important to remember. And I'll quote myself here: "Keep an open mind and learn to be okay with not knowing, waiting for more pieces of the puzzle to fit into place." So that's what I do with confusion. It's like, okay, let me just keep an open mind and we'll see. And so this way I'm not arguing with, you know, people, some things fit, some don't. It's just my own personal exploration of what is possible and what is our true divine nature that we've closed off to. And specifically, you know, at many different periods of human history. So without going into that history, just know that we have locked down, we have shut down certain capacities because it wasn't safe to live from them, from our own inner authority, from our own divine personal connection to infinite intelligence. And that's what we're bringing in right now, that intuitive connection is very important. So let's see. So we are here to share ideas, personal experiences, explore possibilities, and unlimited inherent human potential. And these are all exhilarating topics to discuss in the right company. And I'm very happy to be in that right company here with all of you today. And so from here, thank you. So from here, what I'd like to do is we're going to start off the discussions with Jan. He presented a discussion opener, which is living examples of physical immortality and urban sadhana. Can it support physical immortality? And before I turn this over to Jan, I want to say that, you know, when in reading this, I realized that, yeah, Leonard was exploring Western civilization sadhana. Is it possible in some ways? Yeah, that occurred to me. And at one point I wrote an article for the Conscious Connection called Safe and Immortal in New York City. I'm still here, I'm still alive, so we'll see. But here is Jan. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here celebrating Makan Acharya, sing together, celebrate Leonard Orr and all of the wonderful ideas that we've been able to expand together. One of the first things Leonard wrote in the book I had him sign when I first met him was that we're all still pioneers. That's how he signed the book. And he always wanted us to be part of the formation of what's happening, and we're here doing that. So I'm thankful. So when you asked me about some concepts or ideas around physical immortality, those were just two of the titles or two of the topics of books that I wrote. So I knew that I would have something to say about it, but I thought they're good topics to explore, because the city, first of all, the word city, it can, if you just listen to it, it contains the other sound city, which means magical power. The powers of the yogis, the powers of the siddhas, the perfections that one is able to express that have always been there within our being. Those are the cities. And then, so now we have the same sounding word for like these metropolises where we stay. And there's a lot of poison and pollution and a lot of things that could be labeled as darkness, or however people want to label it, things to be feared in the cities. And in the core of some of the sadhana or traditions in India is the Aghora and Aghori tradition, which would these are, even Shiva, one of Shiva's names is Aghora, which means no fear. Like the word horror, like you watch a horror movie, that's horror, fear. That word comes from the Sanskrit word hora, fear, and aghora or gora, fear, and aghora is no fear. And in a Bible, it say perfect love cast away all fear. It get rid of it. So the Aghoris are somewhat of a group who go to the things that are most feared and are looked at as most heavy and most polluted and most taboo, and find God there. Magnify the Lord. You know, when you magnify an electron microscope onto anything, you can see God up in it, and that's what they do. And they do it where they're doing meditation sadhana with death. They're doing sadhana with all types of poisons, drinking poisons, and using these things as a part of their well, that's Siddha medicine. In Siddha medicine, they'll use poisons as a part of the healing. And so I've come to see us being in cities as having the potential of us doing a similar type of sadhana to the Aghori, because there's so much poison and so much things that are feared in the cities, that if we utilize it in a similar way, that there may be some benefit for sadhana that can be derived from it. But I know that it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. I'll tell you, because I can feel electromagnetic pollution, not just energetic emotional pollution, but I can feel electromagnetic pollution around me, pollution from LED lights, pollution from so much of this I can feel affecting the body at times. And you know, we want to tap into the power of placebo, the power of our mind, to know that our mind has power to create or select which which result or which effect is occurring through our relationships and through our creations in the world. But there's also, like when I presented this book to Leonard, when I presented the idea to Leonard of Urban Ad Hori, one of the things that he brought up to me was that most Americans, you know, are eating McDonald's, and that they're eating these poisons, and they can't transmute, they're not gonna transmute that out of nothing. There has to be a real cause and effect understanding of the relationship between what we do in the city and how we operate in these cities. So that's been something I've been meditating on ever since we had the conversation related to the book. Was is there too much pollution in city environments to uphold a physical immortal lifestyle sustainably? And it's still a question that I wrestle with. It's not a question that I've come to a conclusion about. But these are some of my findings of when I contemplated as far as urban sadhana goes. Does anybody have anything to add as far as urban sadhana and what they think, if it's able to be maintained, if physical immortality is efficient, if it could be efficient as a path in highly populated cities as of now?
I could speak briefly here on this. Most, especially from when I was going back and forth to Virginia, and I was really immersed in the practices. And admittedly, I've let a couple of them slide here. So I can't really say that I'm a good test case in terms of, but there was a time when I was doing that. And I would spend 5 days or a week, a month in Virginia. And I did that for a full year. I'd live in the Dooney on Leonard's property. And so I was living with fire and bathing twice a day. And I was bathing, if I would bathe in the tub for an hour, I'd get an email from Leonard, no matter where in the world he was, you know, longer, you have to soak longer. And it's like, how the heck did he know? You know.
Oh my God.
So back in the tub. So, you know, it was really like a minimum of an hour to 2 hours a day and living with the fire. And, you know, everything I thought or expected from that experience was not what did not turn out that way. I thought I would go down there, I'd start feeling great. But what had happened was every one of those cycles, by the third day, I felt horrible, absolutely horrible. And by the fourth day, okay, now I'm feeling better. By the fifth day, I felt great. And then I was back in the car to New York City. And right when I would get close to New York City, I'd be in New Jersey. It was almost like I'm driving along, and then I would feel like something hooked in, and I was pulled into this pull of New York City. And it really made sense why people have so much trouble leaving. A lot of New Yorkers never leave the island, and they don't even know they're on an island, you know, but you know, I could see that there is actually a pull in New York City. And but I moved. I was living in like 96th and 94th and Broadway, and I had to get out of the city. And this was right before I met Leonard. You know, this was before I started doing. I had to get out of the city. And the doctor I was working with wanted me to stay on a subway line. So he recommended Inwood, which is the very northwest tip of Manhattan. And the first apartment I went to see, Broadway, when I came up and climbed the hill, and it's a granite hill, a lot of quartz and a certain kind of marble. As soon as I walked up that hill, boom, the city just fell away. And I'm sitting up here in this totally different environment that's just, and then it's Riverdale City all around me, but then that big Hudson, river is there. And I'm just sitting up there. And there is the city just drops away up here. So I just want to share that for whatever it's worth for anyone out there who needs to be in a city, and what they might look for, because this helped tremendously. And over the years, I have built, I guess, a field of my own energy that in my apartment also, I don't feel my neighbors, I don't feel anything. So I can't exactly say how or why that happens, or how exactly I did it. We could, maybe another time I'll try to kind of sit down and say what's different that from an average person, because I'm a little different from the mainstream, and figure that out. But I just want to leave that with you. That's where I am now.
The question probably is, how strong can we transform our environment? Because Leonard also referred to us being subject to the environment. And how strongly can we actually radiate our energy instead of being immersed or submersed in the energy that is around us? So the more, I guess, we develop our spiritual powers and we become transmitters instead of taking it in, it probably can change.
I could hop in and speak to this a little bit. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. I feel that certainly there are different states of being, and as most of you know, Harikan Baba was Leonard's guru, and he speaks of the ultimate reality. And I didn't know he called it the ultimate reality, but that's what I was calling it in my experiences. It was like there's this reality that is more real and more alive and more true and more solid than the physical universe we're interacting with. And it gave me a really true, concrete sense of the concept of Maya, of illusion. And when we are in these altered states, then we can shift and be perceiving and embodying that ultimate reality. Everything is different. And to me, in that state, it doesn't matter where I am or what environment I'm in. It's my state that I'm in. Now, getting myself into that state is another conversation. So, I can share a really simple experience that I had after my first 9-day training with Leonard. I had come back to Oregon. I was living alone in my home. I was out in the country, but I was having really blissful states in my bath. I had healed a lot of my birth trauma at the training, relived my first breath. It was an amazing experience. And so I was at home getting pretty blissed out in my bath every morning. I was following the practices, sleeping by the fire. And I got in my pickup to go to work one day. And I was pretty blissed out, and I sat down, and it was a shocking experience because I sat down behind the wheel, and this energy and chi and light just began radiating off of my plastic dashboard. And I went into state of the ultimate reality and realized there truly is only one spiritual substance, the most lifeless man-made thing I can think of is plastic on the planet, right? We can't even deteriorate it. Talk about a symbol for immortality. This is kind of funny. So it became the symbol for me of everything is spiritual substance. There is nowhere that God or the goddess or spirit or the ultimate reality is not. It's everywhere. And so for me, I carry that vibrational knowing in my body and in my consciousness, in my own personal experience. But as I said before, getting there is another piece of the cake. How do we achieve those states? And for me, I know that they can spontaneously happen for anyone, anywhere, at any time. Babaji, Yogananda, Jesus, Mary, there are enlightened spiritual masters, saints, ascended masters that are very active and appear in physical form to people all of the time. We just don't always hear about it. But once you start seeking that out, that information and those stories out, or even just talking to people, you start to hear more and more validation of that. And if you are open in your own consciousness to that even being a possibility and putting some attention and direction there, things can start to open up in that direction. But most of us are just walking with blinders on in the 3D world, thinking, you know, nothing is possible. This is it. All of those are just myths and stories and legends. So I think I could leave it there. I maybe just a little bit more in that, you know, being out in nature and definitely using the system that Leonard taught, that he learned. He says he learned from the immortal yogis of earth, air, water, and fire, and spiritual community. Certainly moved me into higher states of being and into more experiences of the ultimate reality. But you know, it is possible in big cities. I lived in Madrid in a teeny tiny flat. Our bedroom was so small, we could just barely fit a bed in there and have room to walk around. It was super small. And I didn't have a fireplace. I was doing candles. It didn't feel like enough. And so I would open the windows and turn on the ventilation and do my Agnihotra in the apartment. And I had to do it when my husband was gone because he couldn't stand it. But it didn't bother me one bit. I loved it. And I had beautiful experiences in my little bubble apartment, you know, and I like to think of how that may have expanded and impacted the neighborhood or neighbors and the other, you know, the whole city even. So I'm really big on spiritual practices in the city. I've seen Leonard do it everywhere he went, you know, out on rooftops or patios in whatever ways he could safely have fire. And there's, I think it would be just fantastic to have a whole movement of yogis in the city, of spiritual centers where people can come and safely and legally practice fire purification and the elements and everything. So I'll leave it there for now.
We gotta add the Akori element since there's all this fluoride in water and all these poisons. We gotta add the Siddha medicine element as well, so that we can address it at the levels that some of the yogis of ancient times did. Like they would take some of these poisonous materials and add some other elements to it, add some mantras to it, and next thing you know, they would have a Kaya Kalpa or an elixir of immortality. And I think that's one of the things that we can bring to our practices in the cities is that extra element to spiritualize the most polluted seeming things.
I would like to say something. And I would like to add, hi everyone, I'm in Spain. I don't live in the city, I live in the mountains, but I've been living in Barcelona for a long time. And this is the most important question I've been dealing with since I'm in the rebirthing, the concept of emotional pollution. And to connect in what Sarah said, which I like it very much, the ultimate reality. When we approach to emotional pollution from a dual perspective, we believe in separation, and separation is an illusion. So at the end, there's no separation. That's an interesting form to think. I'm approaching to it philosophically, because as Sarah said, the masters are still here, you know, they're still present. As a bodhisattva, you know, we are here while we're healing ourselves. We are healing the whole family, the human family. So I think Leonard wrote something in the book, The Healing the Death Habit, is about when we are cleaning ourselves with purification, we become more sensitive and it's more likely that we absorb. But as Heike said, the more we are empty the less we absorb, the less we pick it up, and we easily process without absorbing. Because I think, do you know Amma? Amma, he goes hugging thousands of people. I think she should be that, you know, and she's not. She goes, she does her practices, and she keeps doing it. So, as Heike says, a state of being, and Sarah knows this ultimate the unity experience, you know, that samadhi somehow that we practice in our spiritual purification. We are healing ourselves, but we are healing the whole family at the same time. But in the cities, it becomes more obvious because we are all together in the same place. But at the end, it doesn't matter if they are far away or close. At the end, there's no space and time. We are a whole family. We're connected in a big family tree of humanity. That's because it's a conversation I had many times with many people all over the years. This duality of things. I have to clean myself. I get dirty. You know, when I work in a seminar for 3 weeks with 20 people, giving sessions every day, I am very loaded, you know, and if I look closer to it, I'm dealing with my own wound, my own healing, my own person. I get triggered, you know, so it's my own thing. But the thing is that because I've been focused and giving, I haven't given time to myself, to my practice. So at the end, it's important to keep committed, to stay committed to our own healing and to our own practices, and to find a balance between pollution and healing and purification. You know, found this balance, a healthy balance that helps us. You know, otherwise we can get sick and really bad. You know, so this each of us know which is our balance. We can handle.
I like to add, I'm studying the anthroposophical philosophy very deeply since 3 years. And I think as Rudolf Steiner describes the spirit, the world of spirit and beings around us, I think it is good to just be aware and to see and feel what is truly around us. And in a city, for example, electricity and magnetic fields, and there is a lot of energy, and it does impact us. I mean, it's you can put your cell phone over an egg and you fry it, you know. So we cannot. I don't think we should be just ignoring it and saying that I just have to enter a different reality. I mean, that's one point of it, that I learned to transform energy. The first step, though, is to become aware what is around me, what kind of forces and energies are around me, specifically also, for example, in a city or with other people. I went to the hospital a few times the last days to visit somebody, and there is a certain energy, and it just takes awareness. We have to get out of fear. But I do believe that if I become unconscious to what is around me and what is inside of me, then I'm also numb. Or I could just ignore it and say, okay, it doesn't exist. So I do think it is more easy when I go into nature and I have the spirit of the trees and the nature and loving beings, spirits around me, than if I'm in a city where I'm trapped around electric, magnetic energies that are often also misused.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's easier.
It's easier.
And then when you come back to the city, it's easier to experience the city as spirit. But if you're only locked in these artificial environments, then it's easy to just get that. You just start entraining to artificial environment, and that everything is nature. God is everywhere. All is spirit. We know that. That's a given. But every thought isn't isn't supporting of that grace of God, of the grace of God. And there's a lot of places, cities are places where there's a lot of thoughts that are not in the grace of God, all collected together, forming these cities. And so it is important to really be aware of how to take, because you don't want to drink a bunch of arsenic and cyanide and you don't know how to survive from doing that. You know what I'm saying? There are
The
yoga.
Maharishi people did an interesting experiment. They were meditating on the cities. So they were forming a group and they would meditate on the harmony and peace of the city. And they proved that when they were meditating on the city and sending out peace, that crime rate dropped. So the impact that we have and the contribution that we can do from our higher power and using our love and our compassion for other beings can have a big impact. And that's basically why we're here tonight. Also, we want to put our thoughts together so that we can support the raising of consciousness. Good to be aware of things and how to transform the reality that we're in, the war that is happening in other countries, and that is happening inside of our physical body and inside of our mind very often. What was the second topic that you wanted to talk about, Jan?
The second topic was living examples of physical immortality. And those are just, that's really important because oftentimes people don't know that there's anything that shows the possibility that it can happen or that it is happening. And the earth itself, you know, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest example because we don't know how long she's been here, but we know that it's living. You know what I'm saying? That's the one that I like to look towards first. But then on Earth, there's so many, look at that. So here, that's a living example of physical immortality from in Myanmar. Leonard brought this to our attention from this book, The Wonders of Mibigong Village. Is that, I think that's how you say it. And I actually was able to trade him Babaji money for that book. And that book is like a super rare book now. So you know what I'm saying? Babaji money
I was to say, lucky you, lucky you. That was a good trade.
Yeah. So, but you have like these things, like for instance, let me just read this one part of this book of Living Examples of Physical Immortality about the cell, because that's what all living beings have cells. And so a dude who got the Nobel Peace Prize, he did an experiment on cells, on animal cells. So he did an experiment. It says animal cells were shown to display immortal capabilities by Nobel Prize winner Dr. Alexis Carrel in 1912. He performed a famous experiment where he placed tissue culture from an embryonic chicken heart into a custom-made flask. He preserved this living creature for over 20 years, which is much longer than the chicken's accepted lifespan. This was his initial evidence that cells could be kept alive indefinitely simply through regulating the nutrients to eliminating the waste in the solution that surrounds it. And so that was one of the first examples in this book, and one of the smallest examples. But so basically what they said is by keeping the cell fed good and keeping the cell clean, that the cell could go on living immortally, as long as it's clean, as long as it's got the proper nutrients. And then we move on to tardigrades. Y'all ever heard of the little water bears? They're these little cool creatures that they could get blasted with cosmic energy, with radiation sent into space, and They come back and they still kicking it. They still chilling. They know how to go into these states where they're just like rocks for a second. They turn into like little crystal beings for a sec, and then they come back and get biological again. There's a whole, like lobsters, we got endoliths, you got hydra, planarian flatworms. What else we got in here? You know, the immortal jellyfish, the axolotl, that's another one. And then the trees. There's so many trees that have been around 80,000 years, 50,000 bushes that's been around. So the book goes into all of those things. I'm not going to break down all of the organisms right now, but there's many examples in nature of things that are either able to get their limbs chopped off and grow new limbs, even parts of the spinal cord. The axolotls can get parts of the spinal cord cut off and grow that back. If we see this in nature, this is in the same DNA. DNA is this information that makes up our body, that makes up all living beings. And yeah, our DNA is definitely different from other species, but there's also same information contained within the DNA of these species that it's contained within our body. We just don't have it turned on or activated anymore. And there's actually ways, I don't know how, I'm not going to do it synthetically, but I think through City, the magic powers is how we do it, by activating or selecting which genes we would like to express themselves. And through seeing these examples in nature, I'm encouraged, because besides humans, it's good to see other things in nature also striving for being alive and eternal renewal, ability to keep their body fresh. And like the immortal jellyfish, they grow big, and then they go have sex, and then they turn little again. They like, what type of life is that, where you just get to have sex and then you go youth, and after you have sex and then you come grow again and then you have sex again? Like they're tantric yogis right there.
They might be missing the consciousness that we as human beings are immersed in, to do this consciously. They might just do this as a habit. And I would think that the human consciousness is something that makes us different, or that is a different power that we have free will, and that we have that willpower instead of just following a program.
For sure. But it's great that we could see them as examples, because they might be all of these creatures might be a smorgasbord of things that we could select to activate and express in our own DNA. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, who knows? But I like to explore that path.
Great, thank you very much. Georgiana is asking to speak. We don't hear you. Peace has muted, and
There we go. Georgiana's here with me.
I think
Right.
it's really interesting. Supposedly, when we're in gestation, in the womb, we go through all the species that are on the planet. My yoga teacher explained that in my practice, wherever practice he prescribes, it's to fulfill whatever areas are still dormant in you, but that we are the synthesis of everything that's ever been on the planet, and we go through that during the 9 months.
Like the little embryonic stage and the tadpole. And
So I just thought that was interesting. So we just have to learn how to wake that part up inside of.
And I'll add this. One theory that I have on how to tap into those those different awarenesses of the species that are in us is to watch their breathing rhythm and then to mimic it. And if we do that, I think that's one of the ways that shamans might have even been doing their shape-shifting, or at least beginning the practice of their shape-shifting activities.
When Steiner talks about the human evolution, he talks about that, first of all, when we were all in that bubble, all beings, we were in a bubble together like a berry, and then we expelled, or different forces of nature were expelled outside of that bubble, and they're actually mirroring our forces inside of us. And now we can use those forces that are outside of us to grow in our consciousness, and bring everything inside of us and outside of us in harmony. So it's a great concept to think of the human development, and we are going now, according to Steiner, into that space where we have those forces outside of us and we are using them, and we are turning back into that higher awareness and bringing physical reality with us in this reality.
Like that.
And
Yeah.
I would like to add something.
Well, we have,
Maybe
yeah.
briefly, that I forgot it. Sure, because my partner was asking me something and I missed it. Sorry, I will come later. So,
Okay.
So we have Glenn that would like to share something, and we have Kira is going to talk a bit about Joe Dispenza, what he's talking about in terms of physical immortality, and then share a breathing practice that he's sharing to activate the pineal gland, I believe, Kira. Right? Yeah.
Heike, did you manage to download the presentation from chat?
Oh, I haven't looked in the chat.
Yeah.
Why don't
Okay,
we, while
thanks.
that's happening, maybe Glenn will speak, and then we'll switch it over to Kira. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thank you. How long do I have?
Maybe like 10 minutes, 15
10,
and then a
15
little
minutes?
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first I would like to bring my wife Barbara into my session with you through me. Today is Barbara's birthday and her best friend Kate's birthday as well. So we have always celebrated Barbara's birthday and Leonard's birthday on the same day.
Happy
So
birthday.
So
Happy birthday,
Barbara's been,
Barbara.
yeah, she's been my partner all these years, for 40 years now. But my spiritual journey started 50 years ago this week, I think it is, and that I facilitated my first Silva mind control seminar in Florida. And in Silva mind control, there's a set system that you present, but you're allowed to develop your own seminars to go along with the actual teachings that Jose Silva developed in the 40s. And so in my first Silva mind control session that I delivered, a girl brought me a book, and it was called Ye Are Gods. And it was by Annalise Guerin. And then the second one was Beyond Moral Boundaries. And so it introduced me to the physical immortality concept. There you go. If you haven't read those, I really highly recommend them. They're very good. They're a bit on the religious side, but they're still very introductory to physical immortality. And over the years, I'm 50 years now facilitating, holding these conversations. I've worked with more than 50,000 people individually. I've done groups. I went to India with Leonard in 1979. Well, in 1979, we did Rebirth America, where we traveled around in a motorhome and we went from one state to the next every week. On the weekend, we would lead a training, And then we would drive to the next state all throughout the United States. And it was a fabulous time. And Leonard had mentioned at the Jubilee in 1979 that he was going to, when we started that, he was going to go to India in December. And he was inviting people who wanted to go with him. He was going to go be with Babaji. And so come September-ish in 79, having been through all those states and all those trainings, I got to thinking maybe I wanted to go. But I wasn't sure if it was my ego that wanted to go or if it was my heart that wanted to go. So I asked for a sign that I should go with Leonard to meet Babaji. And I said, well, okay, if Leonard Orr calls me on the telephone, I'll know I'm supposed to go to India to see Babaji. And so we went about our life, and I was doing my life in Christmas and everything. And 2 days before Christmas, the phone rings, and it was Leonard Orr. And he called me. He said, I'm coming to, he says, I have a rebirther who's coming from London for 6 months training. And he needs somebody to cover his clients in London for 6 months while he's here in my training. Will you go to London and fill in for him while I'm doing the training? He's doing the training here. And I said, well, no, Leonard, but now that you've called me, I'm going to India with you. They were leaving on the 27th. This was like the 23rd of December. So it was really impossible to get passports, get permission, all of that. So they left and went to Switzerland, and I had to leave from Florida because they left from California. And I left from Florida and met them in Switzerland. And we did a training in Switzerland with 46 people, many of whom spoke no English. But we did a training right there, and then we went on to see Babaji. And watching Leonard transform in the presence of Babaji touched my heart. I've never seen anybody transform the way Leonard transformed in the presence of Babaji. He became like a little kid running up. And Sarah, when I see your child, how loving he is, Leonard was just that way with Babaji. And so I stayed there for, I think, 4 or 5 days, and I did have darshan with Babaji, and I received his love. But my traveling companion couldn't handle the energy, and so we left. And that was my experience with Babaji. But years later, in November, well, actually in September of 1985, Barbara and I were married by then. And I was getting Rofing and she was getting Genshin. And the girl who was doing Genshin told Barbara while she was treating her, we were doing a training in Colorado for Ida Rolf Institute. And it was Sunday night and everything was closed. Everyone was gone. Everything was locked up and we were packing up. He says, and she says, this Indian man walked in and said, Sri Sathya Sai Baba invites you to his 60th birthday party. We didn't know who Sri Sathya Sai Baba was at the time, but he invited you to his 60th birthday party. You can bring 7 people in your group and everybody will be safe all the way over and all the way back. And you're invited to his birthday party. So Phyllis was telling Barbara this, and Barbara said, okay, we're going with you. And Phyllis said, well, we don't even know if we're going. And Barbara said, oh yeah, we're going. So that was 4 of us. And then there were 2 other couples that we invited to go with us. And one guy didn't want to go. His wife wanted to go, he didn't want to go. She was going to go. So that would be 7 of us going. And as we got closer, he started seeing Indian people all around him, and he started to think maybe he should go too. So he decided he would go too, and so that would be 8 of us. But 2 weeks before we left, he died in an accident. And so the 7 of us went to see Sai Baba on his 60th birthday. And the wife stayed there for 3 months to do her grieving process in the presence of Sathya Sai Baba. But it opened up a whole new arena for me of spiritual progression. And I was invited to India 11 times in a row. From 1985 through 1995, I got to go every year for 3 weeks and be in the presence of Sathya Sai Baba. If you all don't know anything about him on YouTube, just look him up. There's all kinds of videos. He was Shirdi Baba in his previous lifetime. In this particular lifetime, he was Sathya Sai Baba, and he's coming back now as Prema Baba. Sathya Sai Baba was about truth. Prema Sai Baba is about love. And so this has been my journey on that side of it. But early on in the mind control days, I learned how to regress people into their previous lifetimes. And they could have experiences of who they were and what they were wearing and what all was going on in their previous lifetimes. And that became very useful in having them deal with situations that were going on in their life today. And along the way, we also, believing in immortality and teaching physical immortality, began to wonder what would happen if we could take people forward in this lifetime to their death event. What would happen? What, is time only a reality in the outer conscious level? At the subconscious, the subjective, the alpha theta level of brainwave activity, there's no time. What if we could take people forward in time? So we decided to try it. And we chose one of Barbara's sisters and asked her if she would do this new process we were developing called progression to death. And she said, sure, she'd do it. And so
brave soul.
Yeah. So I took her into the meditation, guided using visualization, imagination, and relaxation. And when it came time, I took her forward in this lifetime to her death event. Had her see how old she was, what clothes she was wearing, what shoes she was wearing, who was there with her, or was she alone? What was the actual death event? What happened? And so she went through the whole thing, and then we completed it. It's done, it's over. You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to die. Brought her back out. And then we asked her to share, well, what happened? She said, oh, I saw the whole thing, I made it up. We said, well, good. What did you make up? She said, I saw myself dying next Wednesday night after my post meeting from the S training. She had been doing the S training. She'd done the first weekend of it. This was Thursday night before the second weekend of it. And they had a post meeting on the Wednesday night following. She said, I got in Barbara's red sports car and I was wearing a beautiful red jumpsuit. And I got up on the interstate and I was involved in an accident with a semi and I was killed. But I made the whole thing up. We said, oh, okay, well, thank you for sharing. And we left it at that. On Monday, after her training, the second weekend of her training, Barbara took her shopping to buy her an outfit for her post meeting. She's in this store, she goes running up to this rack and there's this beautiful red jumpsuit. And she says, Patricia says, look, this is the perfect outfit for my post meeting. It's just my size and look, it's even on sale. I'm gonna get this outfit. Barbara said, Patricia, that's the red jumpsuit you said you were wearing to your death event. And Tricia almost fainted. It was the exact same outfit she was going to buy to wear to her death event in this lifetime. So Barbara took her shopping. They got a different outfit. She went by a different route and avoided the whole thing. So then since that time, I decided to add that process into the Enlivening Weekend retreats that I was presenting. And I would take people forward, and I have story after story after story of people who could describe their self-fulfilling prophecy, which is their death event in this lifetime, taken in the midst of emotion when they took their stand that death is inevitable. And that could have been at conception, It could have been in the womb before we were born. It could have been at childbirth based on the circumstances of our birth or early childhood. We took a stand, we gave our word, we said how our life was going to be, and our life has become a self-fulfilling prophecy until we clear it out. And this is the work that we're doing through the rebirthing, through all of this conversation that we're having, is we're clearing out that original death event process. And then we're free to choose. Then we can choose to stay here as long as we like. And we can leave this form if we choose to, but it's not by accident, it's not by death. Who we are doesn't die. Who we are is a colorful ball of energy that weighs 3/4 of an ounce. It's inhabiting this physical form that came in through the solar plexus, somewhere around the 3rd trimester, enters into the physical body, takes over, and we start this journey into the physical dimension. At the moment, what we call death is really not death. Who we are doesn't die. Who we are withdraws and goes back home, where all the other beings that go, that are there waiting for us. People have described who was there when they went and were there. So all of this leads to our choice. And Barbara was praying and asking God, what's this all about? What's the real purpose of all of this? And God's answer was, what if I sent you to the physical dimension, that we had a conversation and I agreed to send you to the physical dimension as a reward for you having done such a great job in the spiritual dimensions, and this is your vacation. Are you having fun yet?
That's great.
I could go on, and I really want to. I'm developing a training called Merge with God. Beautiful. Immortality, raising the vibration of the physical body. All energy is vibration, is energy vibrating and resting. And there's a mechanism that regulates the vibration of the physical body, and it's determined by our thoughts. Fear, doubt, worry, guilt, anger, sadness, grief, all of that slows the vibration of the physical body down. Love, praise, gratitude, peace, harmony, joy, all raises the vibration of the physical body. So we can actively raise the vibration of our physical body through transformation, through translation, whatever you want to call it, and go home clothed in a body of light.
Okay. Thank you so much, Glenn. That's fascinating and wonderful. And I'm so glad you joined us today and shared that with us today.
Thank you, Peace. Thank you for having me in your home.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
I do have downloaded, I think, Kira's presentation. We have another half an hour. I mean, we can go over time, but we have Anne still needing to talk, and
anyone else? I just realized Anne. I didn't realize Anne. I'm sorry. So we're going to include Anne. Anybody else have something they wanted to? Because we have a presentation from Kira that's going to be about 20-25 minutes.
Really?
Not that long.
No, how long, Kira?
Yeah, well, up to 15.
15 minutes, and then
Yeah.
Anne, how much time do you need?
I'm flexible.
Flexible. Okay.
I
So
can
And Susan, did you have anything?
Susan
you
said
wanted-
no. Originally, she
Yeah,
wanted to-
come on.
So let's start with Kira, then Anne, and then then we'll see. That'll be the end of the meeting. But if we go over, we go over. We can,
Yeah.
and if anyone has to leave, they can jump out. And Heike, I want to be respectful of your energy because this is your 4th.
Well, it's okay. I'm great. I'm supported by divine spirit. I'm just trying to see what there it is. Let's see if I master the technique. Ooh.
Yay. All right.
Okay.
Slide number 3. Okay, and double click onto it.
I double clicked.
Is there a play?
I make it bigger.
How do you anybody know on PowerPoint how to play it?
You go to the slideshow and then you click from current slide, start from current slide. There
Start it
should-
at the top. Yeah, at the
at the
top.
top.
Yeah. Start drop down menu, Heike, top left hand side.
Top.
Start ausschneiden. Oh no, that's
Well, in your presentation, right?
yeah. Drop down menu, top left hand side. Start.
Yeah.
Start and
It's the presentation tab.
oh, presentation. Okay, which
The
one's that?
Bildschirm presentation. Click on that.
Bildschirm Präsentation.
Yeah.
Where do I
Well,
see that?
Bildschirm in the drop down menu.
At the very top. Next to Überprüfen.
I don't see überprüfen.
Right at the very where you saw start, keep going along that line.
Do you see my
Heike,
Yeah.
bring your
Okay,
bring your arrow to start. Bring your arrow to start.
Okay.
Yep.
Go
Okay,
to the
off.
right along that line.
Along the line.
One more.
Präsentation.
One more to the right, Heike.
Oh,
One more to the right.
I
I
can't
must-
see it because I have a black line over it.
Okay, next if you go to your right,
Go a little to the right,
to the right.
along the same line, a little to the right.
Then I'm having a black bar on top.
You can't go to the right?
No.
We can
well,
actually see it, so we could probably
Okay, all right.
do it
Yeah.
like as it is. It's not
Yeah.
perfect, but it works.
just go ahead with what we have.
Okay, so for hello everyone. I've recently been doing a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, which has been overlapping with our teachings in physical immortality. Now he explains it more of how to extend your life, and he funds a whole research program at the University of California, San Diego campus that are doing lots of experiments in this field. So what I'm calling it is the emerging biology of immortality. And trigger alert for anybody watching this video at a future date and you're not on board with the teachings of physical immortality, you probably might get triggered. Okay, so on to the next slide. Just to show you that here there's growing evidence in the scientific community, and as you know, even though I'm a scientist, I'm not one for using science to back up everything, because I think that once you have a mystical experience or a life-changing experience that we've had, we don't need the science to back it up. However, a lot of work has been done in genetics, particularly on the genetics of aging, and they're showing that your lifestyle really does contribute to. So on a gene, if you go on to the next slide, Heike, at the very tip of the gene, they're called telomeres, and these ends. And as the genes reproduce, the telomere becomes shorter and shorter, and it's shown that this is related to cell death and our eventual aging process. And the most important thing to note is the enzyme telomerase, which instigates the keeping the telomeres going, so to speak, to put it in a easy term. Okay, on to the next slide, Heike. Okay, so what Joe did was an experiment of people meditating for 50 days, 1 hour a day for either 5 or 7 days a week. and they actually measured the telomeres from these people at the beginning and at the end. And after, when they did it, 40% significant increase in the telomere length of these people that were meditating. 22 was a dramatic increase. So like a really big increase in the length of the telomere. So what they found is that when you increase cortisol, adrenaline, and trauma, that causes the telomere length to decrease. So what we have to do is raise our vital energy and our love for life through doing rebirthing or meditation, but meditation that really lifts you up into a space of love. And I mean, this was a really fascinating study that, you know, they increased the telomere length just on that 62-month period. Okay, on to the next slide. Okay, so he had another experiment where they're looking at the actual effect of meditation on cancer cells, because Joe's had a lot of people that have done his work that have reversed tumors growth in them. And that's why it's brought me to his work, because I have a malignant tumor at the moment and I'm doing a lot of his meditations, trying it out, seeing if it works. So they've got cancer cells in an incubator, and there's 3 ladies there in front of the incubator, and they do this special meditation where they're bringing spinal fluid up the spinal column, putting pressure on the pineal gland, and having, let's call it a mystical elevated experience. And in front of, and what they found was there was a 25% reduction in the energy of the cancer cells. Now they measure they've got these machines that they can measure. It's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is all energy in the mitochondria of cells, and they're measuring that. And so they had a control where nobody meditated on the incubator, and then they had the experiment where with the meditating, and 25% reduction in energy, which is really quite phenomenal. So the next experiment, if you go onto the next page, which is really interesting, is so they're wondering, like, so what is it that these people are giving off? And they've shown, and unfortunately this experiment is not yet published, so I can't give you any of the statistics from it. However, they set up the experiment by putting the cancer cells into a Faraday EMF blocking cage. Now, I have this material, which because like Jan, I am also susceptible to EMF, particularly microwave radiation. It really disrupts me, and so they use these Faraday cages that block any EMFs. And what they found was that, like, there was a significant decrease in the energy of the cancer cells that the people were meditating over, and the cancer cells kept growing in the Faraday chamber. So when you block the frequency, the cells just continued as was. So there is some kind of frequency that they're proving is happening, which we know about because we experience it energetically, but they're catching up with us. Okay, on
you were showing something, but you disappeared out of the picture when you were showing because of your background. What were you showing?
Am I back? Oh, this. Did you see that?
You disappeared again. No. You are very magically disappearing. This is really powerful.
This is my city. Hold on, blur my background. Right. This is the EMF blocking material that you can put around yourself, you know, to block out when you're sleeping.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that's what that is. On to the next slide, please. And I just wanted to mention something about brainwave states, because it's necessary to get into a theta or even gamma brainwave state to get into the state where there is no state, the 0 point. You know, once you're out of space and time, that's when the magic happens. And to do that, we have to surrender. And this is what we do in breath work. When we're in the energy cycle and we hit that crescendo, you either have to surrender, let go, get into the flow and let the magic happen, or keep struggling. Okay, so on to the next slide. Okay, so the way that he's doing this pineal gland activation is, so holding your breath increases intrathecal pressure of the cerebrospinal fluid in your spinal column. Now that's where you would put the, what's the injection pregnant birth, epidural. So that's the area that the epidural would go into, and you've got cerebrospinal fluid. So when you contract your perineum muscles, the mula bandha, if anybody practices yoga here, you contract your perineum muscles. What you're doing, yeah, the first chakra, you're contracting it, and that starts the energy moving. So what we're doing, and when you hold the breath, it creates pressure in that. So you take you breathe out all the air you can from your nostrils, you hold the breath, you pull in the perineum muscles, and then chakra by chakra, you just imagine is probably the best word, or feel the energy coming up, that breath, as you're breathing in slowly each chakra. And as you're moving up your body, you're contracting your abdomen muscles, then your chest muscles, and then this causes mechanical stress. Now, it's been proven there are crystals within the pineal gland. They're calcite crystals, and if you're creating pressure in the spinal fluid, when it comes up to the pineal gland, it then creates more pressure in there, and that pressure causes the calcite crystals to become electrically activated, and melatonin is produced. And the reason melatonin is really important is that when we're in a sleep state and melatonin is produced, that's when we have dreams. That's when we have DMT is produced, and which produces the dreams. And this is what happens when we have a pineal gland activation, is that time stands still and everything is illuminated within your head. You get this bright light within you, and then you have visions that are so clear. Not like when we're sitting, and I'm a hypnotherapist too, and often will guide people into that's different. It's a different quality of the images that you see. This is like everything is really clear and bright. Okay, so once we get into that state, then we have this like amazing feeling of love, of oneness throughout our body, and that's where the healing is. Okay, so if you can move on to the next slide. I was going to show a video, but we don't have time. What we can do is go on to the next slide, and I'll just go over how to do the breath again. So take a deep breath in, and then exhale, pushing the air out of your nose, and then squeeze to let all that air come out of your nose. Contract your perineum muscles, hold the breath, and then slowly breathe in. Focus on drawing the breath from the perineum to the pineal gland. And as the breath moves up, contract the abdomen and then the chest muscles. Then hold the breath in your pineal gland. Just hold it, and then you're squeezing. You want to squeeze out any more. So what you're doing is, some people put their hands like this and you okay, so all that finally in your pineal gland, you're holding it and then let go. And you do that a few times. Now I've got a track that I can play, so if you would like to try it now, tell me how the audio sounds. Can you hear the audio?
There's a special thing that you have to do to enable. an
Yeah,
audio.
but she
I know,
can't.
and Heike has to do that.
Can you hear? How's the
What do you
audio?
got?
Can you hear it?
What are you bringing? Come on, you gotta get big.
Okay, ready to breathe out.
You gotta want it. Pulling the mind out of the body. To free your spell.
It disappeared.
Come on,
Okay.
here we go. Blow that air out of your nose, whole thing. Now lock it down. Blow out again. Squeeze now, blow out again. Squeeze. Hold it. Come on. Perineum to penial. Inhale. Feel that energy. Lift up all the way to three. Hold it. Keep your attention on it. Now lift up. Now pump. Lift up and pump. 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 Pump and exhale. Feel that in your brain. Come on, don't resist.
Okay, it's very dramatic.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, you can
Never, did anybody else do this as a child? I mean, I used to experiment with a lot of things. But there was one thing where you take all these breaths, and then you crunch down and hold your breath and then you pass out. Did anybody else ever? It reminds me a little bit of that.
So with this, I mean, we can get to the same state in a rebirthing session. And I had that when Leonard sat for me.
Yeah.
And, I experienced everything and nothing, or the whole universe and nothing at the very same time. And it really is a complete process of surrender. Yeah.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Does
you for
anyone have
giving
questions?
us. Okay,
You can stop sharing now.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked that way.
Yeah.
And Kira, you can drop those links into the Rebirth International Community Group.
Mhm.
I do see that we have a question in the chat. Marielle asked, what is the blocking material used while sleeping to block EMF?
Yeah. So
Where do you get
Faraday,
that?
Amazon or eBay. It's called Faraday.
Faraday. Okay, maybe just if you type that into the chat, then everyone can see it. And
It's from the Faraday cage.
Yeah, the same. It's like copper and other materials.
Great. Thank you so much. giving us a little treat of Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Anything else? Or we can we go on
I
to
think we have
Anne.
Anne.
Anne?
You ready?
Yeah.
We are ready for you now.
Ready for me. Well, one of the things that Leonard gave me, I think, well, he didn't give it to me because I haven't received it yet, but that was, he didn't care. He didn't care what other people thought. And I thought, well, when am I going to get rid of this thing that I care what other people think? And you know what? I've never gotten rid of it. There's degrees of it, and it depends on where I'm in my life. So this morning I decided to look on Sandra Ray's Facebook page to see what she was up to. And she was talking about how much worrying she was doing and how she was praying to Babaji not to worry so much. And she was trying this new technique. And I loved it because in spite of the most incredible experiences that we've all had with breathing, with whatever mystical thing has happened with us, to us, and through us, that we continue to bring this humanity forefront. It's like the baby in us that is just coming into a new world is just always following along with us. And I did want to bring that because there's so many wonderful possibilities. And sometimes it's easy to feel like a failure if we're not able to really imbibe, to be one with these techniques and to be able to use them and them to be successful all the time. They're just not. They are part of the time. And I think that it's very worthwhile. When I heard Glenn speak, it reminded me of my training years ago as a transactional analyst. One of the questions we always ask was, at how old will you be when you die, and how will death occur? And we had everyone answer that because we knew the power in that. My colleague had a woman come in and she was 34, and she had written on her script, I'm going to die when I'm 34 in a car accident. And my friend looked at it and she didn't think too much about it. The therapist didn't. That week, her client was in a car accident. She was just turning 34 and she was in a car accident. She was not killed, but my colleague was just beside herself because she hadn't caught that. Because what we would do with people is have them rewrite their scripts, because we found out what people do when they want to check out is that they have 3 ways of checking out of a viable life. And that is one through insanity, the other through illness, and then the last one through death or suicide. And so we had people write contracts that they would not take themselves out through death, suicide, and illness. I know that I've had clients sign those contracts, and years later, they would say they still had that, like 25, 30 years later, they say, I still have that contract. So it is very powerful what we decide on, and we can decide a lot about our death, even though a lot of it is not conscious. And I went down some kind of strange rabbit hole, and the ideas that I followed were not my own, but they certainly did support the things that I believed. And the first one, I'm sure you've heard of Robert Lanza of biocentrism. But what he says is that living things are collectively responsible for the observed structure of the universe. He says that living things are creating the physical. Now, we have this idea about what living things are because we think of us as conscious, sentient beings, but there are other living forms in the universe, such as William Temple talks about. Most things in the universe are made of bioplasma. They're not atomic. We think of atomic substance as physical matter, but there's a bioplasma that really is what Glenn was talking about, who we are. It's a much more complex being. It's not physical. It doesn't have atoms. It's made of the substance that is uncontrollable. It doesn't adhere to the rules that we can do when we're talking about materialistic science. And so we're discovering things about who we are and how to work with it that heretofore only the mystics new. The scientists, of course, are catching up with it. But as a mystic, as all mystics, I find it very exciting and very engaging to learn the processes that are behind these things. Charles Fillmore, whom I'm sure many of you know as the founder of Unity, was a physical immortalist. Now, he spoke about physical immortality many, many times, even though he never wrote a book on it. But the thing that you probably know that was really powerful about him was that after he was 90, that he grew his leg 1.5 inches. So he was able to move The Smashing Power of the Mind. That's great. There's another one out. It's called Immortality Now. And it was written by Thomas Horvath. Who was that one by? Who was that by?
That one is by Charles Fillmore.
Okay. And Fillmore didn't write a book about it, but people wrote about his collective experiences in physical immortality.
What was
And
the other one that you just mentioned?
it's called Immortality Now.
I have it somewhere, but I don't have it on my pile.
And it's
but I
really
have
a
it.
very difficult book to find. It is a difficult book to
I
find.
have it.
Wow. So if you start a search on physical immortality now, you will find so many things. It's amazing. Whereas 20 years ago, or when I first got on the internet, maybe I was on the internet 30 years ago, you didn't find much. But now what we find is there are companies that are working on solving the problem of death. That's how they language it. Google is working on solving the problem of death. They are pouring millions of dollars in it. Now, one reason that we don't hear a lot about this is that we have competition. And so people don't want to let other people know what they're doing. And so we don't hear a lot about this research. And the other thing is a lot of it is classified. I mean, the US government classifies everything, but I can guarantee you they're doing some kind of research on physical immortality or immortality as we speak.
And it might be connected to controlling life force.
There's a light and dark side to it all, absolutely. James Stroley, and as I was going down this rabbit hole on the internet, I found that he says that there are now, he's actually the director of the Coalition of Radical Extension. He says there are millions of people now that believe that we can make a choice about death. Millions. And so someone said, that Leonard Orr wanted to bring this into the narrative. It is in the narrative. It is in the narrative. So we know that all of these people like Jim Gore and Annalise Scarin and Leonard that have passed away, but what did they bring? What did they open up? They opened up something, if we look at Newtonian physics, that was radical when it came about. People's minds were just, oh my, and the scientists are all getting together and talking about it. And then we came up with an Einstein who broke the system even further to the relativity. And now we have quantum physics and quantum mechanics. These beliefs that we have about physical mortality, we are the researchers, we're the architects, we're the ones that are putting these ideas into the consciousness so that we have this next shift or this next breakthrough. I didn't realize this, but my husband, I told him I was going to be on a physical immortality call, but I don't know if you knew, he was a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if you knew that Jehovah's Witnesses believe in physical immortality.
No.
And yes, they do. And of course, theirs is a little bit different because in the beginning, when there was a tree of good and evil, the knowledge of tree of good and evil, and then there's the tree of life, then Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the Jehovah's Witnesses said if he had eaten from the tree of life, then they would have been immortal. But because they ate from the other tree, they're not immortal. And in the Jehovah's Witnesses, they say that if you follow God's laws and God's practices, that you will be physically immortal. Now, whether this is true or not, that's beside the point. But what I will say is that when you have thousands of people who are believing one thing, then what you're doing is that you're creating a consciousness belief. And once I was reading a book on doing occult experiments, and when I did some experiments and they worked out, and one of them was to put cork, a piece of cork in some water and put a needle in it. And then you would take your mind and you would move it until the needle started moving around. And I thought, okay, this is great. So I start moving it, and certainly the needle, it starts going around in circles. And I'm saying, this is really great. And that, because I was naive, I read, it says you could do this. I did it. But then I read the next paragraph, and the next paragraph says, it could take years before you could do this. After I did that, I couldn't move it. That was a nocebo. A nocebo is something that says you can't do it. It's when the doctors come and say, you're going to live for 2 months. But suppose the idea of death is a nocebo. Suppose that's really all it is, that it's that decision that we have collectively that we are going to die. And until we can break that open, then we're sort of stuck with where we are, just like the other immortalists are. But you can see how just one paragraph to me changed my ability to be able to move that cork needle, just one thought. So how much in the consciousness of people who believe in death, how big is that thought form? It's pretty, absolutely, it's huge. We do know, for example, in 1954 that Roger Bannister broke the record for the 4-minute mile, and after that many people broke that mile, and so we're breaking that mile. And I think that literature actually helps us do things, that it brings us something that and I'm talking about fiction. Actually, I'm reading a book, I'm in the 6th book, and it's by Gigi Pandion, and this is called the Alchemist series. And the woman, the heroine in this book is she's physically immortal. She's broken the physical immortal thing. And it talks about Nicholas Flamel. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a great alchemist of the past. And so I do recommend this series because I think that fiction opens our minds up. And if you haven't read the book Jacob Arafat by Michael Murphy, also, that's another book that stretches the mind. And so what are the possibilities? When we believe in physical immortality, what does that afford us? What does that bring to us? And I think in the first place, it brings to us a sense of wonder. Think Harry Potter. Did you watch the first Harry Potter movie? What was the feeling after Harry Potter? It was like I was a kid again. I was excited. I know that people don't walk through walls, even though I've actually met somebody that could put his hand through a wall, but I mean, in general, that doesn't happen. It brings us a sense of wonder. And I mean, for example, how many, this is real, but how many moons are in Jupiter? How many moons are around Jupiter? 80. Doesn't that give you a little spark of excitement to find out that there's something in the physical universe that we don't even know, and that's just scratching the surface? It's like, wow. And what happens with a sense of awe, of course, is a sense of aliveness. That brings us alive. And positive thoughts at Leonard and affirmations, what they do is they move energy. And we know that when we have an affirmation, we need to be energetically aligned with that affirmation. But when we have an affirmation, then it brings our energy up. It brings us up to a more alive state. And then finally, I think that the beliefs of physical immortality feed our creativity. We move from a place where there was a box, talking about getting out of the box, creativity and beliefs like physical immortality dissolve the box. And that's what we can take from them. So those are a few thoughts that I wanted to add about physical immortality, because I look at it practically. I look at it as energy. I look at it as excitement, enthusiasm, and I certainly bless the facts. I mean, I've read Joe Dispenza's work, so much stuff. And even those thoughts, whether I participate in them or not, they enliven me. It's like, have you ever bought a book and you knew it had all this neat stuff in it, but you didn't read it? But every time you thought about the book, you got so excited it didn't matter, because it was like, yay, this is great. This is a book. And that's almost like I see the idea of physical immortality. It's like it brings this energy. It is alive. It's an alive thought. And that's what an alive thought does. It brings life to where we are right now. And for me, now is enough. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And Leonard used to say that when you're physically immortal, you've only got creativity. So thank you for saying that. You know, it just reminded me of him saying we have to become creative and artistic and do lots of fun things because we're immortal.
So
Absolutely.
when this recording is in the Facebook group Rebirth International Community, please feel free to drop the videos or book links or anything else into that, the comments or new posts or however you, let's put it all out there on that group, and then we can share it around more in a more wide way from there.
Great. Heike, can you remind us of what Leonard used to say about you need 70 years to deal with your mind?
50 to 100 with the emotional mind, and 500 years to master the physical body. And that was just his estimate, so that we have no time pressure and that we have enough time and be patient with ourselves and with each other when we are still dealing with explorations of the emotional mind and how to deal with bringing it into harmony. Sarah, is there anything
Oh, oh, I'm just feeling so filled up
finished
with
up
love
because
and
we are, this was wonderful,
inspiration.
Anne. Thank you so much.
I would just like, because Susan Billmeyer, could you please just do a quick introduction, because we asked you to come and I'm so glad you joined us, but at least let us hear your voice and say something.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm in, you can see I'm in Michigan. I've been kind of behind the scenes. I knew Leonard and Heike. I don't know if you remember me. We met in Las Vegas. And, you know, I've been kind of behind the scenes for the past 30 years, kind of living my life, but always doing the practices. So the whole, how do I live in a rural, I'm sorry, not a rural, an urban area and continue to do practices was very relevant to me. I've made bathtubs that I could put at my fire pit in my backyard. I had my little fire ceremony area on my screened in porch on the desk. That was the only place in the screened in porch that I could put my copper oven and everything. So I'm kind of emerging out of the shadows that I've been in for the past 30 years while just kind of doing my own thing and practicing. So here I'm near Ann Arbor in Michigan, and I'm turning my house kind of Leonard style, living on, I have a duplex. So I live in one side, and then the other side of the duplex, I'm turning into kind of a spiritual purification community center, physical immortality center. So out of the other side of my house, I'm doing education, retreats, classes, things like that. So if you want to come and hang out with me and do physical immortality practices here in Michigan, everyone is welcome. So
I'm about 3 hours away, and I know Zach, he's just about 2 hours away on the other side in Detroit. So we're gonna
yeah. Oh, fantastic, Detroit. I'm in Detroit a lot. Excellent. You and I.
So I'm in
should
Chicago, but our other Roberta friend Zach Hawkins, he's over there in Detroit area. So we're gonna I'm gonna holler at him and see if we could come kick it with you.
Yeah, we should do something. We should do something. Definitely. That'd be great.
And in April next year, Susan and I are giving a 9-day training in Michigan. So please come and be an assist and be part of it, because we want the community together.
When is that happening?
End of April for 9 days. Yeah.
And so if you can drop your information, these videos are going to be on YouTube and the Facebook community group, so that people can be in touch, because there isn't a lot happening in the United States around Leonard's original teachings. And we really wanted to create that and support that. So here we are. We want to be in touch with you and make sure that that gets promoted.
Use the Facebook group. That's where, people will see your posts. So, and please do.
We have a US convention. And
I have to get, the vaccination is a challenge.
I know how to get into the US without the...
Okay, I need the...
come on, I want to know that, Kara, please.
You'll have to PM me, okay?
Okay.
Could I say something? Hi, I'm Marielle. I met Leonard originally in Berkeley, and then we had to move to Singapore. And he actually flew with Elvie to Singapore, and we led a week-long training there. I have no idea how I got involved. I have a feeling it's related to past lives. Meanwhile, in this life, I am juggling a lot of complexity, and I have to write. I have to write about all this stuff. But I appreciate, this is the first time I've joined you, even though I've received emails from Elvie, and I'm kind of surprised she's not here. So there must be story about that. And okay. I just wanted to say hello. I've never been to India. India's come to me though. I have stories about that too. And all I can say is that this has to be my kind of Harry Potter life. That's probably the only explanation, because everything is so unusual. So thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful
you.
for showing and introducing yourself. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kiara.
Sarah, is there
Yeah.
anybody else who would like to share? Because we are going to
Over time. I think we can wrap it up. I mean, it's just so amazing. You know, I guess in my last thoughts, I kind of wanted to address today, you know, there is a lot of criticism, or people feel betrayed or bitter or, you know, angry that Leonard didn't make it, you know, that he died. So I want to speak to the white elephant in the room for just a moment, because I know that people are feeling that way. Some people are, probably not anyone here today, but I just feel that, you know, to throw the baby out with the bathwater would be a really big miss. You know, just because Leonard didn't achieve, as far as we can see, physical immortality in that incarnation, doesn't make all of his teachings wrong. You know, he was a pioneer. We're here pioneering. And look at how many people he inspired into the idea of physical immortality. So, you know, please don't let that dishearten you. I know that that's not what he would want for us. And he always said, you know, don't take my word for it. You know, until I'm 400, 400 years old, 300, maybe it was 300. Okay. So, yeah, I think just, you know, and looking at all that he accomplished with, I mean, he founded the modern day breathwork movement. You know, how can we feel betrayed or embittered by this? So if you are feeling any of that, please do some self-reflection and look and do that personal growth and that inner inquiry, and, you know, feel in your heart of hearts, what is that for you? Because, you know, Leonard was not our savior. And just because he didn't make it doesn't make everything invalid, or that no one else is going to make it, or that he was wrong, or, you know, any of that. So I wanted to just kind of speak to that and send a little bit of love and support to that, to anyone that may be feeling that way, who might be listening or watching. And there are so many great resources. It's wonderful to come together as community. I definitely want to be involved in, you know, live events and coming together in the US, particularly because it's been pretty quiet here. Yeah, we'll keep moving forward. We'll be in touch. I hope you're subscribed to our newsletter. You can go to rebirthingassociation.com and subscribe with us, and you'll be invited to all of these events and kept in the know and keeping the magic alive. So thank you. And Heike, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for holding the space of this entire day for all 4 sessions in all time zones around the globe. You are our angel, and we love you. We're grateful for you to have come together and create this space and community with us. So thank you.
It's been a total blessing today to be in all these calls. This morning we had people from India, from that time zone, from Australia, and then we had the German meeting and the Spanish meeting, And now we are finishing this meeting, and it's just totally exciting and gives me a lot of energy. And I just want to speak to the fact that for some of us, Leonard is really still an inspiration from the other side. He's not gone. And we can perceive his energy and his contribution. I do. And I
Absolutely.
feel that with everything that I'm studying, that there is some part of him behind me saying, keep going, and explore this and go there, and fills me with enthusiasm. I mean, the enthusiasm that I have for life, and he supports my enthusiasm for life. So I'm very grateful to Leonard for all the inspiration that he's giving me. And the last words now I hand over to Peace, and then I will finish this meeting. And I've already uploaded to YouTube the 3 prior meetings, and so I will upload this meeting soon, and it will be available. If you go to my name and there is a Rebar channel under my name, then you can watch the replays. And all these meetings are great, and you might not understand German and Spanish, but those were also very great meetings. Peace.
Yes, well, I don't really have anything more to say for the moment, except thank you all. This has been just a wonderful experience, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in Michigan and Chicago and, you know, now. So keep us posted, and please, you know, share on that Facebook group. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep the conversation going.
Yay.
And
Yay.
that's called Rebirth International Community Group. Yes.
Yes. And
And-
most everybody
Yes.
here has been pre-approved to post, and I will, so that I don't have to. But I always usually approve the posts for people I don't know, because you never know what's going to go up there. But once I know you, I do a pre-approval, and you can just drop into the group what you'd like. Okay.
And we are saying good night, good morning, and
Good day.
see you soon from all parts of the world, from our Rebar team, which is Peace, Sarah, and me, and Irene, who was here before. So thank you for joining us, and have a good evening, day, and morning for all of you, wherever you are. And thank you for all your wisdom and beautiful contributions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ole Baba Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Jai.
Yay.
Om Trayambakam Jidamai Sukandim Pushtivadanam Urva Rukmiva Bandana Richo Mukshia Mamritat. We master the forces of death and disease, and that this is not, that we can overcome these forces.
Blessed be.
Good night, everybody. I
night.
turn off
Thank you.
Facebook first and stop the recording.